This is ST-321, code clearance blue. We're starting our approach to deactivate the security shield.
Hi, I'm Paul and I'm with my mate James and welcome to Code Clearance Blue, a show where we discuss all things Star Wars from our home here in the UK.
We would be honoured if you would join us.
I've been looking forward to this.
Always two there are, no more, no less. And that's usually the case on Code Clearance Blue, as you might know if you're a regular listener. But today we've been joined by a third party. He's an old friend of the podcast. This is his third appearance, fourth maybe, something like that.
Yeah.
Mr. Mark Newbold, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I've got one of these stupid 12-week coughs. So if you see me hitting the mute button or missing it and coughing all over your recording, it's me. So, but apart from that, I'm good.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us, mate. But Mark's bona fides are obviously he works for Fantha Tracks and he's also written for Star Wars Insider amongst a plethora of other things. So he's obviously very welcome on the podcast as always. Just before we get into it, chaps, Mark might already know this because he speaks to a lot of people all the time, but a celebrity has been outed by their spouse as a massive Star Wars fan, I noticed a couple of days ago. I don't know if you guys saw this or not.
Not Brian May, is it?
It is Brian May.
Is it?
Told you he knew.
No way.
Yeah, apparently old Anita Dobson, or Angie Watts, as I know her.
Oh, yeah.
She's come out and said that he's a massive hoarder and a lot of it is Star Wars toys.
Yeah. It's actually been known for years and years and years. So yeah, there's a brief little story. So I used to write for Jedi News. So when I first joined Jedi News, James, that is, the owner there, is a massive Queen fan. And back then he was trying to get an interview with Brian May for Star Wars Insider and could never quite land it, even though he knew people that knew people and they were trying to organise it. It never quite came together. So yeah, there's like, you got, there you go, first one. You got Brian May, who was like the big UK celebrity Star Wars guy. You got Rick Springfield in the States, who was like the American rock Star Wars guy. I think Ed Sheeran was like into Star Wars Lego massively and then sold it because obviously he needs the money. So, yeah. But Brian May, apparently he's been full on big time collector for years and years.
Actually, just as a quick sidebar, I listened to an interview with Danny Dyer the other day, and apparently he, during COVID, went mental on like Star Wars Lego and Harry Potter Lego and all that. He's quite into it. And his daughter, who he does a podcast with, was like, what did you do with all that, by the way? You finished building it and everything. He was like, just fucking gave it away, didn't I? I didn't know what to do with it. He's like, what do you want me to do? Like deconstruct it again and put it into the box of Lego, and then I can't find the bit 5 years later.
That's very Danny Dyer, though, isn't it?
Yeah, excellent.
It was good, but yeah, it was Brian May. Apparently, he's got like a replica sized Yoda and all sorts of other bits and pieces. And yeah, Angie says it's all in a room in the house and it's not allowed out of the room. So
right.
Very good.
So Freddie was lying. He does like Star Wars.
Yeah.
I reckon so. I know Paul's saving up for his Lego Millennium Falcon, aren't you, mate?
I am. Yeah. I got the £250 one, which is saving up for the big one now.
Nice.
You should have put that towards the more expensive one. They got started.
I know, but he was a bit impatient, so I had to get the sort of episode 7 version. First.
Who was impatient? You or?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Maybe.
Right, let's crack on then. So we've got Mark with us. I suppose the first base to touch on, Mark, is Skeleton Crew. Obviously finished now. What were your thoughts? What were your takeaways from it? I
absolutely, genuinely loved it. I thought it was brilliant. It was great fun. It had such a good energy and loads of number 2, loads of comparisons to all the 80s stuff. Everyone says, it's like Goonies, it's like E.T., it's like this, that, and the other. They were so absolutely on the nose right. It really, really was. So I love the fact, in a weird way, sometimes Star Wars bugs me when Filoni will say, this is our kaiju episode like Godzilla, this is our mystery episode like this, and it's like it's a little bit too on the nose. Skeleton Crew just came out with everything on the lapel going, this is basically Goonies, and then they made it, but it was Star Wars Goonies. I'm like, I'm all in, because I love the Goonies, and so going into this with that vibe. But that being said, there was way more sort of connective things to, I don't know, High Republic connections, and there was lots of little things all the way throughout it that were like, wow, there's loads more in this, I think, than even we realise, having watched it each episode a couple of times. You might have to sit back for a few months and then watch it again, which would be no chore whatsoever, and just the visuals were great. The kids were brilliant. Just loads of little things that just really worked. The music was top notch. I hope that comes out on vinyl or 8-track or whatever. They never seem to put anything out on physical media anymore, which I think is a monster mistake, because I think a lot of fans would chew that up if they ever did that. I loved it. I thought it was so much fun, and something that you could say to a friend who's not necessarily not into Star Wars, just not into Star Wars at all, and just doesn't know, well, what's good to watch at the moment? Like, I watch Skeleton Crew. What's that? Oh, it's a Star Wars show. Oh, I'm not into Star Wars. Honestly, you don't need to be into Star Wars. Just watch these kids. You'll get gripped and taken away. So, yeah, I was really chuffed with Skeleton Crew. It's raised the bar for me. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I thought it was great. You're spot on. I mean, one of the things that we loved as well was just the depth of the characters, and like they just weren't. I was really a bit worried that it was going to be, especially after sort of Acolyte, what sort of the reaction to that. That I just thought, oh no, it's just good. People are going to hate it because of the kids thing, but they weren't annoying at all. They had some really good characters, and sort of every character we're meeting during the, and then also Jod as well. He's sort of. His mystery, and the fact that he had a different name every episode. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. I was really impressed with it. I definitely can watch it again, and no problem, like you said.
And the fact that he was the bad guy, and that they didn't walk it back. There was like the last 3 or 4 episodes, like, oh, he's gonna realise those kids, plucky little heroes. He's gonna he got worse. Look, didn't get better. I love that. So we said it on Making Tracks. I think again, this show, when you look back at it. It's kind of changed the excuse me, 3. It's changed the layout of Star Wars in the sense that a new character like I don't know, Ryan Gosling, they're saying, is coming into the Sean Levy film, and if he does, great. But straight away I said, he could be the villain now. You can't assume that he's going to be the plucky heroic good guy, because you thought Jod was he's a bit down on his luck, and he uses the Force and all the other aspects, and then you find out how he learned the Force and why he's kind of twisted towards all of that, and why it is a dog-eat-dog galaxy, especially after Jedi, the lawlessness of it all. So they've put it in the right time period. I love the fact that he was unapologetically the bad guy, even the little wry smile at the end when the kids did what they did. It was, I thought it was brilliant.
But then, like, he wasn't like a typical bad guy like your Darth Vader, for example. It's kind of there's shades in there, because he is a kind of a down on your luck pirate or smuggler or whatever you want to call them. And yet he was so mean to the kids in sort of like the last couple of episodes, etc., that you were like, wow, this guy is kind of the antagonist of the whole show. But he's not like the Empire. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Oh yeah, I mean he's as broken as anyone in not just in that show, but of a lot of characters we've met. Because if he was going through all the stuff he did, and he meets a Jedi Master, and he starts to learn some talents, and then I think they kind of said, if I remember, that he saw his master get killed, and so he's on the run and he's living in that underworld. It's the Han Solo and Corellia thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I know they always say, oh well, the hero within will come through and stuff, but if your circumstances are that crap, and you've got nowhere to turn or no one to lean on, which it kind of feels like Jod fell in with the pirates. It's another Peter Pan analogy. It's the Lost Boys thing, isn't it? Which is why I think he connected with these lost kids initially. But ultimately, it's avarice. He's a pirate. He's looking for the loot. So that kind of won out. But, I mean, they've got to do a season 2, and he's got to be a part of it.
Yeah, do you think they will?
Oh, I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Celebration. Announce it at Celebration. The roof will come off the place.
Yeah.
We'll come on to Celebration in a little bit. I mean, do you think there's room for? I mean, I don't know how much they're going to cram into the Mando and Grogu movie, but is there a role for Jod in that maybe somewhere, or maybe the kids? I don't know.
I don't know about the kids. I think John Watson, Chris Ford sort of said, and also because they filmed this like 18 months, 2 years ago, so the kids have actually sprouted up quite a bit.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That if they do a second season, they've got to have that adventure. It's like Elliot meets E.T., And then 2 years later, what happens next? Well, he can't meet E.T. again. E.T.'s gone home. Something else happens. Maybe Elliot joins the Goonies. I don't know. So I think they've got to think that there's another adventure. You want to keep these kids together as friends because they're bonded by, probably the first kids in their generation, or even their own parents. That generation on the planet who've even left At Attin. So they're special. And it is. I said it's a bit like the Fellowship coming home to the Shire at the end of Lord of the Rings. It's not. They've not gone through anything like what those characters did. But when you get back home, it's like, oh, is this it? This is it for the rest of my life. I'm not sure I can deal with that. So I think there's something there. But I think if they did a show with these kids every 2 or 3 years, if they can keep the actors involved and have them, if necessary, pop up occasionally here, there, or everywhere. At Attin's part of the galaxy now, so there's no reason why other people wouldn't come to them. That you could, in a few years' time, when they're early teens, do a story, mid-teens, join the Resistance, mid-20s, fight in the First Order. You could see a progression through the timeline to, if they keep the kids and actors invested and they don't feel like they've got a leap ahead, because why would you not want to use these kids? These kids could have been part of the Force Awakens for all we know, and we just didn't realise they were there. So it's that. I think there's massive opportunities to do really good stuff with these kids.
Yeah, Paul and I were kind of speculating as well about At Attin kind of being the local bank of the galaxy, basically. Yeah. Do we think there might be a thread that's through the eye of the needle that lends itself to the First Order getting access to that cash, maybe, or maybe even the Resistance?
We said this again on Making Tracks. It's like, how did they afford to build Starkiller Base? I mean, Starkiller Base is probably already being built, but the early, because it was Ilum, wasn't it? So there's that whole connection there, but it's still got to be funded. The Sith Eternal fleet's got to be funded. They can't just pull that out of nowhere. Even the Emperor or his successors have to fund it. So, and what we saw was Bank 113 or Vault 1139. There's another 1,138 volts just on At Attin. And, and there was the 9 worlds. And we thought, well, maybe, it was the Great Work. So that's that whole High Republic connection. Maybe At Attin is the bank. And, the other At Akron was something else. And these different worlds have different responsibilities, if you like, for want of a better word. So they all do different things. But if At Attin's the bank, that planet is, it's your local TSB, isn't it? So you think if somebody breaks in and steals that and starts siphoning money off, because it feels like it's just been moving around. Those great big grabbers were just moving stuff around. Why? Nobody's coming here. Nobody's leaving here, or are they? So it just makes you wonder. There's definitely a significant backstory there.
Yeah, I love that. It was a nice surprise, and I thought, it answers a very, like you said, a very big question we've all had. Like, how is all this gear funded? Throughout it all, and I thought it was okay. Now we're beginning to answer that question. Yeah, it makes sense. And the fact that it was so secret and was a really real good thought that's gone into it.
Because with the Republic moving forward, the New Republic or the Republic, as I guess they just call it. We know at some point they start to demilitarize and they start to wind back because they're trying to make a galaxy of peace, and that's a mistake. And obviously the First Order rise out, way out there, are building, and clearly from what you see in Force Awakens, Last Jedi, which is like back to back, steamrollers the galaxy. There's barely any opposition to it. It's not a civil war like it was in Star Wars, or nothing like the Clone Wars. It's just fairly quick domination. So it makes you wonder, whoever's part of the Republic Senate at this point, are they all on the level, or are they siphoning stuff off to the bad guys? At least the Empire, the Emperor was elected. At least he was elected. Nobody voted for the First Order. People did vote for the Emperor. So, but there you go.
They were slightly under the influence, I think. A lot of those voted
little bit.
I mean, also to your point as well, Mark. I just suddenly thought of a scene in The Acolyte where Venestra's on the comlink to someone talking, and obviously we understand that there's a lot of pressure coming from the Senate on the outside to be like, look, we need to regulate you guys or whatever. And that kind of stands to your point that you just said there as well, that sort of everything that we kind of understand as true in terms of like, Palpatine got himself elected, but it was all kind of rigged, really. It just goes to show that there's always untold forces that are putting pressure on the outside on things,
Yeah, exactly. And with the Emperor, there was I think it was that new Legacy comic that came out. The Marvel thing came out a couple of weeks ago, and the first part is celebrating I think it was like the 30th anniversary of Chancellor Palpatine's accession to the throne. Right. And it's like, when you kind of, and I think we're all guilty of it to a degree, when he becomes the Emperor, announces a new order, instigates the start of the Galactic Empire, that feels like the day he takes over. It's not. He's been in charge for 10 years. He was put in charge in Attack of the Clones. So, way back when. So you kind of forget that he was Supreme Chancellor then. And that whole stretch of time, all the way through the Clone Wars, he was Supreme Chancellor. It's only at the end of Revenge of the Sith that he takes over, and then you're moving into that gap between the trilogies, that he's already been in control. So how much stuff did he set up in that time period that facilitated everything that happened for the Empire? It just makes you wonder, stepping forward to, Skeleton Crew era, and now At Attin is out in the open, like you said, it's the snitch everybody wants to catch it when they're playing, Quidditch or whatever. Now that's available. It's not just the pirates that are going to want it. Of course they are, because it's pirate law. We know that from Skeleton Crew. But the good guys are going to want to secure it because they'll feel like it's theirs because it's Republic. The bad guys are going to definitely want it because it's funds that they need. So it's just, wow. And as long as nothing massive gets contradicted, which I don't think it will, because I think it's spurious enough that they can work in little angles. Yeah, great. Just have at it.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think so. Just quickly, Mark, did you get a chance to go to any sort of preview nights for Skeleton Crew? Did you get to go to? Did they do any cinema screenings of the first few things? Did you meet any of the cast and crew on your travels?
Yeah, I got very lucky. They had a press junket thing on Trafalgar Square in November. You can imagine 8:00 on a Thursday morning on Trafalgar Square. It's not tropical.
Yeah,
I'm not complaining, but it was bloody freezing. But that was fun. So got a little bit. We had a couple of questions with each of the cast. So we spoke to the 4 kids and got a couple of questions in with Jude Law, which was very cool. He was clearly well up for it. He clearly enjoyed it. He was very engaged, and of course he knows what's coming. We'd seen the first 3 episodes, I think, which they insisted they sent you a link, so you had to have watched it to do the press thing, so you could just parlay a little bit, talk a little bit. So that was very cool. And then we had a Zoom call with Nick Frost, who was chuffed to bits because he should have been in like Force Awakens. He was he turned a roll down back then. He was like, no, I don't, if I ever do something, I want it to be a bit, not this. I wanted to do something else. So he'd been sort of skirting around, obviously his connections with Peg. And then we spoke to Chris Watts and John Ford as well, which was funny because I inadvertently mentioned Star Trek when I meant to say Star Wars.
Oh man!
Yeah. Oh yeah! Seriously. You had let me tell you, we had 6 minutes. Right, you sit down in this room, and it looks just like the Junkets on telly, like you see on the TV stuff. And I actually looked like I knew what I was talking about, which is kind of not normal. So we start talking. There's a woman in my line of sight, just like they're in front of me, and she's here, right, and you don't know how long you've been sat there talking. You sat there a minute whilst they're setting it all up, and then you start, hello, how's it going? You having a good day? Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the show. And you're just having a bit of a chit-chat. And then they go, right, start, and you go, right, first question, read the question. I don't usually take questions in. I thought, I don't want to lose my train of thought. I want to get my proper questions in. And I can see this woman go in like this. And I'm thinking, what does she mean? I don't know what that means. So in my head, I thought 30 seconds left. So I'm kind of counting down to 30 seconds, and they get to the end of the question. I go, well, brilliant. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. And they go, thank you very much. And then this woman goes, why are you stopping? You've got another 3 minutes. I don't know. I thought there were 30 seconds to go. So the guys went, oh, we thought it was 6 minutes as we're, right, can we start up again? Yeah. So we start up again. Now, I've burnt through my questions now. So I'm thinking, oh, God, what do I ask? So I ask them about the suburban aspect. Did you know you got it looking like Star Wars? And then the planet. How did you know the planet looked right? And then I says, you're long-time Star Wars fans. You've been watching Star Wars since you were kids, a similar age to me. So you've been watching Star Wars since you were kids. How cool is it to be able to tell a Star Wars story with ILM doing the visual effects? But I didn't say tell a Star Wars story. I said tell a Star Trek story, right? And I went, oh no. And they both started laughing because they went, don't worry, mate, we do it all the time. And I'm sitting there going, I'll never live this down. I'll never live this down. And I'm thinking in my head, my poor Brian back at Fantha headquarters is going to edit this to make it make sense. Actually, it was just cute enough to get away with, so I just left it in. But yes, that was where's the hole that I can jump into?
Yeah.
Didn't open up. I just had to sit there like a plank. So all good.
Excellent.
Oh, that's great. That's really good. Paul and I had little reason to celebrate yesterday. Since we've jumped onto YouTube at the start of the year, we've had our first video break the 100 views.
Nice. That it's weird with YouTube. We've been doing YouTube for a while.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And it's amazing. The stuff you think's going to click doesn't, and then something that doesn't does. So we had a video years ago where it's kind of cool actually. It's about 2019. Hayden Christensen came over for London Film and Comic Con, but we the previous year or earlier in the year interviewed Ross Beedman, who played Master Skywalker. There's too many of them. What are we going to do with that kid? When he was 3 and now he's like 20 something. I interviewed. I think it was the first interview done for like 10 years, and he didn't remember a huge amount, but I managed to get like 20 minutes out of him. But at the end, I said, "If you ever met Hayden, what would he say?" And he said, "I can't remember what he said." But anyway, he was at London Film and Comic Con. Hayden was at London Film and Comic Con. We said to showmasters who were running it, "You do realise you've got the little Master Skywalker kid here, and you've got Hayden here. Why aren't they together?" And they were a bit like, they weren't fussed. So we managed to sweet talk one of the people to say, "Look, Ross is here. Can we just put him in front of Hayden for like 2 minutes to say, I'm the kid that, presumably you chopped into tiny pieces." And we put them together. We videoed it. We took a few photographs, which every other site in the world stole and didn't give us a single credit for.
Cool.
It's the only decent picture I've ever taken in my life. It went viral and I never got a single credit for it. But the video did like 150,000 views. But if a video like that can't get 150,000 views, nothing will it? I mean, it's the kid from Revenge of the Sith and Hayden Christensen. So, but then we put out like regular videos or review videos, and your Hasbro ones do well because it's a Hasbro review if it's before the figure comes out. But your day-to-day stuff, I'm really rabbiting on today. I'm sorry, lads. But
that's great.
If you get 100 views on most videos, I think you're probably in a fairly decent spot, because not that many. It's like podcasts. Not that many podcasts get hundreds or thousands of listens. Yeah, there's loads of podcasts out there that's like one man and his dog listening to it. So anything like that, and it'll only build. So congratulations. It's like a long-winded way of saying well done.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
I think it was we tied our sail to the Andor 2 mast for that video.
Yeah, so I think that helps. Yeah.
Timing as well. I mean, everyone's stoked for that. Can't wait for that.
What are your hopes and aspirations for that? I mean, me and Paul were a bit disappointed that there wasn't a trailer during the Super Bowl, for example. But what are you thinking?
I was not surprised one bit, because Super Bowl money for a trailer. I mean, they spent about 250 million making season 2 anyway, or whatever it was, significant money. So I can't see them spending another 30 million to advertise it. So I wasn't surprised that there was nothing there. I was a little bit surprised there was nothing that wasn't just running off the back of it on StarWars.com or Lucasfilm.com. That being said, we just mentioned Celebration is on its way. Well, there's no point hyping it at Celebration. It launches 2 days after Celebration finishes. Yeah. So I think we'll start seeing stuff pretty soon. I think because you're in that last sort of 4 or 5 years going up to Rogue One and A New Hope, which is like right after the back of it, I think you're going to see a lot more tech, a lot more the rebellion coming together. I think there'll be a lot more action, familiar action, X-Wings, TIE Fighters, all that malarkey. I think you're going to see that ramping up. I think it's going to be a bit special, but I hope... Well, I've heard nothing to say that it doesn't thematically fit absolutely in lockstep with season 1. So it's going to be hefty, thought-provoking, somber in places, but I just think there's going to be a lot more action. We're going to see a lot more familiar faces. So I'm really looking forward to this. And I don't say that, you can look forward to something too much sometimes. It almost puts pressure on it, because nothing ever lives up to your own expectations. So I'm conscious not to be too effusive about it. but I've got a feeling it's going to be like a worldie. I think people are going to look back at season 2 of Andor and go, "Phew, yeah, that was a bit special."
Oh, I hope you're right. I really do. I'm very similar as well. Like, I don't want to get I think that's the good thing about Skeleton Crew, because I went in with such low expectations that it really blew me away. Do you know what I mean? And that's I've got to try and get those expectations down. I don't know, but
it's nice to be excited though. This is the thing.
It is. That's the thing. Yeah.
When you have a rough run, like Acolyte I enjoyed Acolyte. I thought it was fine. I thought it deserved a second season, but it just got piled on so much. And if you said anything positive about it, you got. I mean, on Fantha, all the comments we had, and I'm pretty positive with what I post anyway. If I've got something negative to think or say, I don't put it on the website. I tend to just push the positive stuff. But that's just me because I'm, soppy. But every time we posted anything positive about Acolyte, the comments was just like that, But so it was nice to come to Skeleton Crew and go, I'm standing right behind this show. It's such a breath of fresh air. Such a it had that lovely vibe. And I think in the modern era of Star Wars, which is 10 years now, well, 11 if you count Rebels. Really, you should count Rebels. That to have something like Force Awakens just had that snap, that old sassy Star Wars vibe. And they didn't really get that again until Solo, which was just top to bottom brimming full of that coolness. And then since then, it's been difficult because Rise of Skywalker wasn't that wasn't the purpose of Rise of Skywalker. It had nice moments, but that had to wrap that gets a tough rap, that film. It wasn't just a sequel to Last Jedi, which is tough enough. It wasn't just a capper to the trilogy. It was a capper to the 9. So that film was so loaded with stuff it had to do. I like 9. I'm quite happily. I enjoy 9. I think I like JJ how he directs those actors, but that wasn't ever going to be a fun, upbeat experience in the same way. And you've not really had anything since. Mando's a totally different kind of cool, and Book of Boba was all right, and Kenobi served its purpose for what it was trying to do, and all the other shows we've had. But then Skeleton Crew comes along with these kids who you've never seen before, and if you never see them again, you'll look back and go, well, we never had a sequel to Goonies. They're saying there's going to be one, but they're all in their 50s now. You never had that. So, I think there's a place for it. But I'm back to Andor. I'm hugely excited for Andor. I think, the way that Diego Luna keeps talking about that show, he's clearly buzzing about it. So,
What do you think about the way that it's kind of scheduled out? We're being told that it's kind of a block of 3 episodes and a time jump until it gets basically up to the start of Rogue One. That's quite a interesting way for them to approach it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's ambitious. It was neat how they did that, I think, in season 1, but it wasn't. They'd never really sketched out the time period in season 1. It was just in blocks of 3. Whereas I think for season 2, from what Tony Gilroy has said and what Diego Luna said, that originally they were going to try and do 5 seasons, but the work involved to pull a season together, and Diego's not getting any younger. I mean, he's like, I don't know how old he is, in late 30s, early 40s. Yeah. Cassian is at the start of season 2, he's 5 years younger than he was in Rogue One, and Rogue One was made 11 years ago. So that's 16 years. He's playing a character 16 years younger than he actually is, and he's aging away from that all the time. So it's that. Yeah, I think they made the right decision. But to do a block of 3 and then step us forward 12 months, which is kind of what they've said they're going to do, like you say, all the way to the end. And I can only assume the final episode, because Tony Gilroy said this, that the last scene of Andor will completely just like that with the first, or well, not the first scene of Rogue One, the scene on the Rings of Kafrene when he meets with Tivik. I'm assuming that's the start that he's on about. I don't think he's on about the bit with Jin as a kid or anything like that. That's already happened. So
already happened. Yeah. So I think that's what he means, to be able to put those two together, like we did when you watch the end of Rogue One and then go straight into A New Hope. Into New Hope. Yeah.
It's what a treat.
Lovely. Yeah, I can't wait. It'd be really good. Anyway, expectations are low.
Sensible.
Don't hype yourself up.
Sensible.
No, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine.
No, you can imagine we get like 3 episodes in and it's like absolutely smashing it out the park, and we're all like, oh yeah, come on, it's going to be. And then you got another 8 weeks of it or whatever. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah,
that'd be good. I'm wondering if because if they're going to do it in kind of the blocks, like if they're like the one block is going to be totally dedicated to like Mon Mothma and like the sort of like how the rebellion start pulling together, and then there's another block where Krennic is like getting the Death Star more in order, and we might. I mean, you might even know this, Mark. You might have heard a whisper, but maybe Galen might be making an appearance. The chance.
I haven't heard. I think the assumption is that you'll see Galen, you'll see Tarkin, there's, and I think they're fair assumptions. I was with Guy Henry last weekend. I wouldn't ask him such a pointy question because I like where I am with things, but and I'm sure he'd give you a wry smile. But I've never asked him, and I mean, when did I first interview him? 2022. So Andor was out then, and I interviewed him for Insider, and would you come back and play Moff Tarkin again if you had the opportunity? Well, I'd never say no if I had the opportunity. And he was very sort of cavalier and answering it, but without giving anything away, because what actor's going to say no to a good gig like that? But I think you're going to see a lot of familiar faces. And of course, technology's moved forward now. So I think there's the opportunity to see some faces. I mean, it'd be nice to see the Emperor actually looking like the Emperor instead of bringing him back in certain TV shows looking like he did in Rise of Skywalker, which made no sense. So, let's de-age the Emperor to look like he did in Jedi and do all that sort of stuff. But Damon's still got the voice. He doesn't have to be the face of the Emperor anymore. They can probably, use their technologies to do that really well now. So anything like that, I'm all in for. But yeah, I've not heard any whispers of those actors. I mean, just having Krennic back, I think he's fantastic. Just to see him, stropping his way around will be brilliant.
Yeah,
so.
Paul, what was it you saying in our last episode that it's kind of like a battle of middle management, this series, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely in that sort of room, whether they're in with old Deirdre.
Yeah. Well, I mean, her story is going to be interesting because she's trying to edge her way up, isn't she? And she's seen stuff that a lot of the others haven't seen as well. So, and good old Cyril with his cornflakes. So there's there's lots of little there's lots of pre-existing storylines like Bix. How's she going to recover from that mind probe thing that she went through? And Brasso, his mate, and there's all the different things. B2. So, I mean, we know we get K2 in this K2SO. So, and one of the theories I've seen knocked around, and one of the Fantha lads said it, was that they wouldn't be at all surprised if the mind of B2, in the same way that L337 ends up on the Falcon as the navigation computer, that B2 ends up being part of K2's programming, just to make it work.
That'd be good, wouldn't it? That'd be nice.
Because there's such a connection, isn't there?
That would be good. I'm really intrigued to see if Cyril's mum will let him have sugar on his breakfast.
She's a tough woman to please.
Where's having a go? But he keeps going back.
I want to see the uncle. She kept mentioning the uncle, whatever his name was.
Yeah.
I really want to see the uncle. I want to know.
Yeah.
I want to know about him. Even if you get a Marvel one shot, I'll take that.
I was going to say, not in the actual series. We've got enough characters as it is floating around that fucking old uncle in there as well.
That's right.
But no, we're really looking forward to it. Of course, I think Paul, if you go on Twitter and say your expectations are really low for Andor 2, you might make quite a lot of friends, actually.
Yeah, right, okay, I'll try to stay away.
Good stuff. Mark, we briefly mentioned a couple of times Celebration. Obviously, it's taking place this year of our Lord 2025 in Japan. Presuming you are going to be going, either working or just as a fan. What are you thinking about that one?
Just as a fan this time. So there is the podcast stage, which I've helped organise before, but it's much smaller this time. Although we have a pod on the podcast stage, which was the big tick in the box for me. So we are doing a podcast there.
Nice one.
So just as a fan. Yeah, they're just as a fan. So got a queue. I haven't queued for years, so that's going to be an interesting thing to do. But yeah, very much looking forward to it. I mean, I've never been to Japan. Excuse me. So that talking. Never been to Japan, so that's a first for me. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of the island, and we're in Tokyo, so hopefully see plenty of Tokyo. So really excited for that. I might not get over there again. It might be the one time. So if it's 20 years, I'm saying this to the guys, if it's 20 years, near as damn it, till the next celebration in Japan. 18 years since the last one. So in 18 years, I'll be 72. I don't know if I'm going to be going over there in 72. But then again, Steve Sansweet was still flying around the world at 72, but he's Steve Sansweet, I'm not. So it might not happen. So I'm going to make the most of it this time. But yeah, excited. And I think there will be some reveals, saying about season 2 Skeleton Crew, or what the next film might be, because we're getting this Mando and Grogu film in pretty much a year after Celebration. Oh, it's a year to the day, I think, after Andor launches season 2, 22nd of May, 26. But they did say that Filoni was doing a sort of a Mandoverse film as well, or the Favengers, as I call it.
Nice. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if that's still happening, and what other we've got Ahsoka season 2 starts filming in May. So there's still movement in that space. So it'll be interesting to see what they announce. But yeah, it's going to be good.
Can you guys imagine if Kathleen Kennedy comes out on the stage, just goes up to the mic and goes, Acolyte season 2? And then just
literally, honestly, if she walked out and did that with a Forces Female t-shirt on and just drops the mic and walks off, that would hit the front page of every newspaper in the galaxy.
Oh, it'd be amazing.
Oh, man.
It'd be amazing.
Yeah,
all those hate channels.
The internet would break.
It's all their hate in one shot, isn't it?
Totally. But you've got to watch it to hate it. That's the trick.
Yeah. The thumbnails would be off the roof on YouTube. All the haters.
Paul won't leave his computer. He'd be clicking on the next one. Look at that thumbnail. Look at that link.
Look at that link.
All our good content gets 100 hits, and all this crap gets 2,000. What's going on?
I wonder what the denominator is. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely think that was a tactic, though. I don't, not to be too skeptical, but I do feel, especially on YouTube, there was definitely, as soon as they went the negativity on it, obviously they went, oh, these numbers are doing really well, let's stay negative on it. And I think, like you've said, we had the same feeling as you. We enjoyed it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, okay, there's a few little bits, but let's get over it. It's fine, you know what I mean? But generally, a load of Jedis, great. What is there not to like? You know what I mean? And I think, there was definitely me being a bit skeptical about that, just like the negativity getting clicks.
It felt totally that. And it felt a bit like, when Phantom came out and people were like, especially once Clones came out, and Clones was, I think, better received. I know it didn't do as well, but I think it was better received at the time than Phantom was, Attack of the Clones. In retrospect, it's not looked back on so fondly. I don't know why I'd put Clones on right now if happily, but I'm talking to you, so I won't. But I love that film. But people were like, why didn't they start it off with the Hayden Anakin? And we could have had 3 films of the Clone Wars and yada yada. And of course, you're thinking George was probably all the time thinking, I want to do the Clone Wars as an animated series. That's my plan. Yeah. So let's leave that in that gap. And but you needed to see Anakin as a kid to see the arc of the fall to become Invader and everything that happened. So it makes sense in retrospect. And I think it's a bit like that with Acolyte, where if we had have got another season, I think it probably would have been a fair chunk of time further in, because Leslie Headland kind of said, well, I'd like to tell stories in that space between season 1 of Acolyte, or the end of the High Republic, and Phantom Menace. And there's novels that John Jackson Miller did, Living Force, and there's stuff sort of happening in and around that Jedi Knights that's coming out. It's in that time period. You could have worked your way towards that and told some really interesting stories, to the point that you go back to season 1 of Acolyte and go, I see why they did that now.
Yeah.
But it never had the chance to be afforded that sort of retro look of, oh yeah, I see why they did it. Like now you look at Phantom and go, yeah, of course it wouldn't work if they did it just as kick-ass Anakin. It's like, play a video game if you want that. This is storytelling. It's not just an action film. That's where Star Wars is so smart. So I think Acolyte, hopefully in time, will be looked back upon, and I hope that I'd love to see it come back as, if they did season 2 of Acolyte as an animated show, in the same way Ahsoka season 1 is basically Rebel season 5, isn't it? So you could flip that. You can go the other way if you want.
Yeah, you mentioned that, James, didn't you? That there's a potential for comics or books, just to sort of kind of, or we see a different series in that, a Plagueis, or you know what I mean, like something else that still is that time. That's again very fascinating. There's loads of stuff, hints of that time, and it'd be great just to have a little series of there, because
it really would. The thing that really annoys me about it is they set it up so good with that ending, to have Plagueis knocking about and then to have Yoda there at the end, and Venestra's dodgy, or she's party to something that's going on outside the council that we now are not going to know about, and everyone's lying moaning, going like, oh, Yoda must have known that the Sith were knocking about and like that they're all corrupt and everything. That's not what Jedis are. And it's like, no, we don't know anything about it because now we're not going to get season 2. So, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally that. I mean, people who I read bits of the Horror Republic. I wish there was more hours in the day. There isn't. So I've just about got a handle on. Phase 1 I was pretty up to speed, and I really enjoyed the comic side of Phase 2, but never got to read much of the novels. And Phase 3, I've just got such a pile of stuff that's built up. I've not had a chance to really dig into Phase 3 at all. So that's my failing, and not by choice. It's not that I got bored with it. I'm a Trek guy, as I mentioned. I watched first 3 seasons of Discovery. It wasn't doing it for me. I never saw the last 2 seasons, and I don't know if I will. And that's insane for me to think that there's a Star Trek series out there that I'm not going to watch the end of because it just lost me. And there's not enough hours in the day. It's not like 20, 30 years ago when you go, I'm going to watch all of Buffy again, or I'm going to watch all of DS9 again. DS9 is my favourite Star Trek show. I'll probably never watch that again from top to bottom because there's always new stuff. So Acolyte, I really hope something happens with the stories because, as you say, they complete. I mean, it felt like a bit of a Hail Mary. Let's throw Plagueis in at the end. Screw it. Let's just chuck Yoda in, just his ears. That's all we need. Yeah, I don't even know if I don't know if it was CG or they used the Last Jedi puppet. I don't know if Franco's operated him because if he didn't, that's a first. So it's like I don't know the details of that, but they threw it in there, and it was enough for us all to go, ooh. Okay, finally, we kept thinking we're going to see Yoda way earlier, and now here he is, right at the end. So you can't leave us like that. Come on, because it was so expensive, $230 million for that season. Skeleton Crew was 115. I mean, half the price.
People do have a point that they spent a hell of a lot of money on it, and obviously, if it didn't do the viewership that they were hoping, then that's a business reason for them to say, okay, maybe it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
But I said to Paul, just go back and give them 130 million to do season 2. Then I'm sure it won't look that much different.
No,
do you know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean, and it's a bit like a Skeleton Crew, where the only big name, not to denigrate anybody at all.
No.
The big name in Skeleton Crew is Jude Law. So Jude Law's like McGregor. He's on movie money, so he would have been a chunk of that 120 million. And look at what they did with the rest of that budget. It looked phenomenal. And Acolyte looked amazing. But to my eyes, it didn't look as visually impactful as Skeleton Crew. But then Skeleton Crew's in that pocket of time that we're very familiar with. And there's lots more Easter eggy things. When you went to Port Borgo and you saw the Starspeeder 3000 there, and you saw Hondo's ship, and you saw all these other vehicles that were familiar. I mean, you had to pick them out, but they were there. But you couldn't do that with Acolyte. It was completely fresh and new. They had to redesign Coruscant pretty much to make it feel different. So, excuse me. They had to. They didn't have the same sort of things to bounce off as they did with the later shows. But I completely agree. If they sat down and said, I mean, I read. In fact, it was on Fantha. The 5 shows around Acolyte in terms of viewing numbers, I think, was Bad Batch, X-Men 97, Agatha All Along, Percy Jackson, which was number 1, and there was one other show. There's 5 shows that were around the Acolyte in terms of minutes watched. Their accumulated budget was 242 million. Acolyte was 230 million just on its own. The other 5 was 242 combined. Their combined minutes was over 9 billion minutes, and Acolyte's was 2.7 billion minutes. So you're paying 230 million for 2.7 billion minutes, and you're paying 240 million for 9 billion minutes. It's like you say, it's a business decision, really. I don't think it was a quality or whatever, because I know Lucasfilm and Disney follow the trends of what fans are saying online. No, there's no way that show wasn't review bombed. It became sport at one point. It was ridiculous. Those Rotten Tomato numbers, the critics giving it 80% and the fans giving it 10% or whatever. That's nonsense. So, it was just one of those things, I think.
Just to let Paul know, Buffy and DS9 are TV shows from the 90s, which you'll get to once you finish with Grange Hill and Biker Grove or whatever you're watching these days.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. No, that's
Right.
okay because I'm just at Mad Men now, so it was. I'm caught up on Buffy.
Oh, nice.
Buffy's coming back. You need to get up to speed on Buffy.
Oh no, okay, better watch
Yeah.
it again then.
Oh, yeah.
Just done Friends and Buffy. That's it, and then I'm
Oh.
on Mad Men now.
I'm on about my 15th run through of Friends. I watched the last episode and go straight back to the first one.
Every week, James like, "Oh, have you seen this on Netflix? Have you seen Squid Games?" Like, no. I don't watch modern stuff. I just watch Star Wars and Mad Men. I haven't done
working
Game
for
of
you.
Thrones yet.
Oh my God!
What was I watching last night? Obi-Wan. I was just watching Obi-Wan last night,
Brilliant.
So just keep watching the same, all those billions of views. I'm getting all the numbers up for everybody.
It's you. Lucasfilm owes you a bouquet of flowers or something.
Exactly. Just keep watching the same old stuff. But anyway,
Let's, Mark, I'm sure you're going to know this. Let's ask Paul. Paul, what's the connection between Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Star Wars? The main connection that I'm thinking of.
I don't know. I don't know, mate. I really don't know. Go on.
Sarah Michelle Gellar is an Inquisitor.
Oh, is she? Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't
in
know
the
that.
old Rebels.
And Seth Green was the voice of Cad Bane's robot Todo 360.
Oh yeah, he was.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Good shout.
Yeah,
Good shout. Who was what was Nick Frost up for Force Awakens? It wasn't Greg Grunberg's role, was it?
I don't know. They've not. He didn't say, and it was one of those rumor things I heard years ago. He was up for a role, and it never quite came together. And I think because Peg was doing Unkar Plut, and I think they just thought, oh, it'd be fun to get the guys together. But he never, it never quite materialised. And I asked him, I said, I can't believe it's taken so long to get you into the galaxy. He said, well, I nearly did stuff in the past, but I'm a fan. But then this came along, and it's like it's just. I can look at Smee, SM33. I can look at him and not be distracted by looking at me, because he doesn't look like me. He sounds like me, but he doesn't look like me. So he says that worked really well for me. But apparently he said it was over the course of about 2 years doing the voice for that he'd record it and then they'd go away and make a few changes and go, right, can you re-record it like this or add this line? And he said we just built it. So even though he wasn't on set, it was all remote. It sounds like it was a really collaborative process. So he was, you could tell he really enjoyed doing it.
Wow, I mean, Paul can speak more to that, but just for a single voice in a TV show to do it for that long, etc. I mean, wowza.
Yeah. Well, it's good for him. He keeps getting paid
Yeah.
every time it turns up. He's getting regular income every monthly payments. Can you say R again?
But he said "R" so well, didn't he?
He did, yeah. Kept saying it. Just another take.
Do you know
Lower.
what? For such a pirate-heavy influence show, it apart from SM33, it didn't really feel like that. But when you sort of sit back and reflect, you're like, it was quite piratey, actually.
Oh yeah. And like I say, it all its influences. It didn't sort of hint at them. It went, look at this, it's a pirate show, and it proper did it. But then we said on Making Tracks, you think, like I said, sometimes they can be a bit too in your face about the influences, and then suddenly it doesn't feel like Star Wars. It feels like Star Wars trying to do something else. With this one, the flavour of the pirate stuff was there. Man, they totally took the pirate speak and the West Country accent kind of vibe. It went a bit hot fuzz in places. But but then you think back to Return of the Jedi and what's Luke doing when they're going to chuck him in the Sarlacc pit? He's walking the plank. So you've always had these pirate things in Star Wars to various degrees. Even Luke and Leia swinging across the chasm. It's like the classic pirate sort of the swing and lots of things in there. So
Good shout.
Yeah.
Speaking of hot fuzz, old Paolo, what's his chops is coming into Ahsoka 2, isn't he?
Yeah.
What's his name? I forget.
Yarp. Him.
Oh yeah. Oh God, what's his name? I've gone blank on his
The Hound.
The Hound. Yeah. I've gone blank on his name.
I can't remember his name, but he's coming in. He's taking over Ray Stevenson's role, isn't he? I believe.
Yeah.
Is that
and
right?
they were pals back in the day. So it's a nice connection there. I can see that. I can totally see that. If he's obviously they're going to make him look as much like Ray Stevenson as, or I shouldn't say Ray Stevenson, as much like Bale Skull. That's the right thing to say.
Yeah.
They're going to make him look as much like Bale Skull with the hair and the beard and such. He's got the similar stature. He's a big fella. I can see that. And I hope it's not I don't think it will be. It won't be an impersonation. It's just going to do his version of Bale and Skull in the same way Harrison Ford's doing his version of Thunderbolt Ross. He's not doing William Hurt because why would you get Harrison Ford to do anything other than be Harrison Ford?
Yeah.
You know, so I guess it's a similar thing to that. And again, Ahsoka season 2, I'm really excited for that. I did a rewatch about a year ago, and I kind of fancied doing it again because I really did enjoy Ahsoka.
Great.
All of those shows on rewatch, even Book of Boba, when that came out, it was like, not so sure. And there's still bits in it, those stupid scooters with the mirrors. Like, what were they thinking? One guy in California watches Quadrophenia and thinks that's a good idea. It's like, no, that was not a good idea. But the modding stuff was cool because you'd kind of seen that in the comics, so I didn't mind that. It's like a fad, almost like you can imagine kids around the galaxy doing that as like a fad. You know, we had fidget spinners, they chopped their arms off and put mechanical limbs on. So there's all these little things, little elements that some were more attractive than others. But the idea of Boba, because I mean, you know, when Favreau comes along and has the idea of the Mandalorian, looking at the time period, Josh Trank's already washed out on the Boba Fett film that should have been announced when Gareth was announcing Rogue One at Celebration, and then they pulled it after the Fantastic Four debacle. And so the Boba Fett thing doesn't happen. And so at that point in time, when Favreau comes along and says, I've got this idea for a show about a Mandalorian, he's able to do what RoboCop did to Judge Dredd and go, I'll take that element of Judge Dredd and that element of Judge Dredd and I'm going to turn it into this thing and then we're going to release it. So when Judge Dredd comes to be a film, it's like, we can't do that. RoboCop's done that already. And it's a bit like that with Boba Fett. It's like, Mando's already done that. You can't be the cool guy with the cool ship and the lonesome warrior and the yada yada. Mando's beat him to it. So they had to change Boba Fett as a character. So given that they were sort of caught out to a degree, just by timing, there's nothing devious about it. I think they did a decent job, and I thought it was way better on second, third watch.
Yeah, I think I need to give it another watch, I think. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, I haven't watched it recently. I have watched it again. And I think the thing with it, there's some really good episodes that are really good, and then there's some episodes that are really, like, it's just not a very consistent series. And it does that Star Wars series thing, which we talk about a lot, which is it crams everything in the last episode, which really annoys us because it has a couple of episodes which are really just a bit bobby, and you just think, you need a bit more of that in there, and it would be a bit more consistently better. You know what I mean? And
because the start of it, it was quite brave showing, Boba getting out the pit, how we got out, found by all that stuff, being with the Tuscans. It was like, wow, this is quite deep. Actually, there's just more going on, and even it could be overused, and it kind of would be overused. But the flashback stuff in the Bacta tank was like, that was fine. That was interesting. You could see why his mind would go to that when he's in the Bacta tank. But you can't keep doing flashbacks in every show because he never had flashbacks. It's a fairly recent Star Wars thing. You know, you had visions. That's different. Padme has a vision. Luke has a vision in Empire. You can have visions, but actual flashbacks wasn't the thing. Even in Kenobi, when you see when you see Ben and Anakin back on Coruscant training, sort of Attack of the Clones era, it's like when you look at them, they didn't particularly do a massisse job on de-aging them. They pretty much look at like they do. So when we spoke about it on the pod, we were like, that's a memory. That's not a flashback. That's one of them remembering what happened. Probably Ben. Because you think if Anakin was remembering it, it would be a different thing altogether. So it's probably Ben remembering it. And when you remember yourself back in the day, you don't necessarily see yourself exactly as you looked when you're casting your mind back to a memory. So that felt like a memory rather than a flashback. So, but I think Star Wars has done a fairly good job of these little moments. Mando season 3 with the Keller and Beck stuff, getting Grogu out of the temple. That was an amazing sequence. More of that, please. So there'll be stuff like that in Ahsoka, and you could even go back to Jod in Skeleton Crew. You know, if they'd have done a scene like that in Skeleton Crew, it wouldn't have surprised me one bit.
I
think people were maybe hoping that was the case with Jod. I think they wanted to get a flashback scene just to flesh out, where he'd come from. But I think his description was strong enough with leaving the door just slightly open that they can explore it if they want to in future. I must say, I rewatched the whole of Mandalorian again, like over Christmas and New Year, And if you don't watch Book of Boba Fett, you are fucked when you watch the start of season 3. You really are. And at the time, I didn't understand why people complained about it quite so much. But doing that, I was like, oh, yeah, they're back together and they've got the M1 and it's a bit random.
Yeah. I mean, it is Mando season 2.5. I mean, obviously, you get to the end of season 2 of Mando, is it? And then Book of Boba?
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. That's right.
Excuse me. Which felt like a great treat. What is this Book of Boba Fett thing? What's this? And that felt like a last-minute addition. You know, and there was all the rumours of Pedro walking off set and them not being happy and, doesn't want to come back and do season 3. And, I mean, he's the voiceover guy now, basically, isn't he? It's Brendan Wayne and Lateef Crowther and Barry Lowen and the other guys are Mando and he's the voiceover guy. But which is fine if it works, and I'm assuming that's the same for the film. But they must have had to really turn the gears quickly to make Book of Boba work, but then throwing in those 2 Mando episodes. I don't know whether that was like, we need to explain why he's back with Grogu for season 3, or bugger, we've written this Book of Boba series. It's only 5 episodes long. What do we do? We want him in the final episode for the big finale, as you say, Paul. Throwing it all in at the end, but. It's like, how do you make that work without it feeling like you've suddenly forgotten about Boba Fett for 2 episodes and Fennec and just completely gone away, and you've suddenly with The Mandalorian, I imagine the ratings on those episodes were like that. So, I don't know.
Because it was really interesting to see, like, I think is it episode 3 or 4? Because I haven't watched Book of Boba Fett since it come out, but that episode where we meet the Mandalorian and he's inside that kind of meat freezer and he's like taking those guys down and stuff, and it's like, oh, I know what's going to happen. Mando's going to get drawn in over to Tatooine to help Boba out because of X, Y, and Z. That's going to be amazing. And then the next episode, we're off with Ahsoka, like going to visit Luke and Grogu and stuff. It's just like.
Yeah.
Sorry, where's Boba Fett? And what the hell's Fennec doing? You know what I mean? She have to go and rally some troops and stuff. We haven't seen her for 2 episodes.
Yeah. It was a mishmash. It was fun. It looked good.
Yeah.
It was fun. The music was good as well.
Yeah.
So, but it was. Yeah, it felt like they were kind of either reaching a bit or trying to fix something that had happened somewhere. Whatever that may be. Yeah,
I'd love for someone to come out from behind the scenes one day just to explain like what happened, because it does feel, to your point, Mark, that they either said, oh, we need to cram an extra episode in, what can we do? Well, we've got Mando, throw him in. Or like the Book of Boba project was kind of like bouncing around so many different people. They were just like, well, we can get it made for X amount, let's just do it. We've got the people in place. And then they kind of just, I don't know. But I'd love someone to come out one. That could be an expose for SW Insider, maybe.
Oh, if only. No, you're right. Yeah, I forgot about Ahsoka being in there and Luke. Yeah, because you'd seen like end of season 2, you see Luke appear in that like absolute top 5 all-time Star Wars moment. Really was. And the the visual effects that they did to de-age Hamill, and then what was it, a year, 18 months later, and you see Book of Boba Fett, and the massive leap forward to what they did in that, which looked tremendous, and I'd love to see. I mean, I've said this too many times, and it's probably bored people, but because we're on a digital platform like Disney Plus, I don't see any reason why they couldn't redo the de-aging of Luke in Mando season 2 to be better, like Leia at the end of Rogue One. As a technique now, I know it's not easy. It's going to cost thousands, no doubt about it, whatever they do. But they can make these changes, like when they went into Phantom Menace and put the digital Yoda and replaced that awful puppet they had in the original Phantom. And little things like that. They can do it. They can almost do it with very little fanfare and let people find it. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I don't see any reason why little changes like that couldn't be done. Because new people are coming, you imagine the amount of people who are going to watch the end of season 2 of Andor and then go and watch Rogue One, and then get to and then see they've just watched. If I'm saying if, I don't know, but let's say Moff Tarkin is in season 2 of Andor, it's going to look phenomenal. It's going to look more like Peter Cushing than anything ever, because that's the goal. It's going to sound like Guy Henry, but look like Peter Cushing. And then you go and watch Rogue One, which is going to still look phenomenal. But you'll have a 10-year-old version of that same thing that doesn't look quite as much like Peter Cushing. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's a bit like the whole special edition issue with those 1996 CGI effects have aged way worse than the original effects from 77.
Yeah.
So, it's just Star Wars is such a patchwork. I just sometimes think maybe just put a team of 10 people, right, go through the whole freaking lot and just tidy up, get rid of the garbage mats on those TIE fighters and Empire and just go through it and just make things better all the way through. But we don't need to make a big song and dance about it until it's all done and then go back and watch everything, guys, because you'll notice we've done this, and this. You imagine the numbers. Be incredible.
It would be really
good. Yeah.
I'll tell you,
or they re-release it at cinema again just to get an extra 30 million.
We'd all go.
Yeah. Mate, we went last year.
we do go.
We were all there again.
I'll tell you the reason that won't happen, gents, is because I don't think there's anyone that cares as much as George Lucas would to go and do that. I know some of the effects and scenes that he put in the special editions haven't aged that well, but it's because he cared that he wanted to do it, and I don't think Disney have got, even Filoni withstanding, would be like, give me a budget of $300,000 and I'll go and do all that stuff. They'd just be like, nah,
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I sadly completely agree, because I think you could probably cost it out if you wanted to. You could identify the bits you wanted to do, and somebody could sit there with a pen and paper and go to John Nolan and go, we could do this in these 15 different episodes or films to punch this, that, or the other up, and it'll cost that, and it'll go, really? Is that all? That's the catering budget for a film. Yeah, let's do it. Tell StarWars.com, market the crap out of it, Lucasfilm.com, the whole lot. But somebody in a suit somewhere will go, why? Yeah. They're going to watch it anyway. Yeah, but this is Star Wars. People don't need much of an excuse to go and watch it again. If somebody said today that go and watch Star Wars again, why? Because they've made the Jabba in the Jabba scene even better. Oh, hell yeah. I'll watch that. And you just end up watching the whole thing, wouldn't you?
I'm off.
Yeah. Oh, it's gone.
Oh,
there's a showing at 5:00. I'm off. See you later.
Oh, there you go. See ya.
It's good to see the showing. So, just quick question, actually, when we're talking about the out of all these sort of TV series, is that Luke Skywalker scene sort of your favourite? Compared to maybe the Obi-Wan Anakin, or you know what I mean? Like,
I don't know, because I think it's the scene that elicited the biggest response. When I think back, and there's been lots of cool scenes. You just said, like, Kenobi's got plenty of cool bits, and you can go through all the shows, and there's been some really tremendous moments. We've not had an amazing dogfight yet. That's one thing I'm looking forward to. The only one that really blew me away was the flight between the Purgles in Ahsoka. I thought that was amazing. That was cinematic, amazing. But I think when you got to near the end and they're on the bridge, and then you see the flashing, and you see the X-wing, and just every bit, it's like, I was sat on this sofa right next to me here, and I was on the edge of the sofa. And I won't repeat what I was saying. Was in way, And my wife was sat next to me. She was like, "What?" I went, and it just kept building. And I'm like, no, it can't be, because nobody had heard. I don't remember anybody spoiling it. No. It was a proper surprise. And then, when the cloak comes down, I'd gone by then. I'd gone, because holy shit, I'm watching Luke from Return of the Jedi. I know it's a few years after, but and when R2 comes through, it's just like, they're the moments that you're invested for. That's why, not the only reason. There's loads. I'm as much a Star Wars fan to have a chat with you lads as for anything else. You know what I mean? It's all part of the package of talking about it, enjoying it, whatever. But a moment like that gets the blood up and just gets you sitting there like, God, sit back in your seat and go, I can't believe what I've just watched. I am so freaking happy. Which is why I've got a lot of time, as we said at the top of the show, about Skeleton Crew. Just came away from every episode going, it's just me. Was that really good? You shouldn't feel like that. It's Star Wars, of course it's really good. But you'd be messaging your mates going, you seen the new Skeleton Crew? Yeah. It was really good, wasn't it? Yeah. And that moment in Mando season 2 was just, right, really up there, really, really up there. So I guess I would pick that as the one, which is probably the most common moment for most people who've enjoyed, the current era. And when was that? Was that 5 years ago nearly, wasn't it? Yeah. So we need some new good moments.
It was a cold November, and I was like, this is like, I just packed the kids away to school,
Yeah.
And I think it's sort of COVID still. Like I think there's a little bit of COVID kicking about, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then you just sent me this voice message, didn't you? What the fuck? I was sort of speechless, but I don't know what I've just seen.
Yeah.
Because that's the other problem with this TV stuff is that you're sort of experiencing this stuff on your own.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously when we went to see Star Wars, I mean the Rogue One that ended in Rogue One was sort of similar, you know, that feeling.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, at least you're with your mates in the cinema watching it though. You know what I mean? You experiencing sort of, but on a cold November Wednesday morning on your own, you know, like you say at 8:30 in the morning, you just like you're not expected to be so overwhelmed by this, you know, emotional thing, you know.
But that's the beauty of it, isn't it? That something we've all been into since we were kids can still get older, you know, and make you feel anything, let alone that, you know. That was a shot in the arm. It really was.
Yeah, it was great. I was sending Paul voice notes on WhatsApp, just being like so when like he's walking through the corridors, I was like voice noting him, being like, "It's not, is it? No, it's not. It can't be, can it?"
Yeah.
And then like another stage forward, I'm like, "Fuck it, I think it is," you know. And he's already seen it, so he's sitting there going like, "He'll get there in a minute. He'll get there."
Keep watching.
Yeah,
keep watching.
yeah.
Keep watching.
Like I want to talk to you about it, but I can't.
Oh, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. But yeah, I think we might have come full circle. So unless there's anything else you chaps want to bring to the table.
No, all good. All good. It's good to catch up with all the series that we've seen this year and stuff. Yeah, no, thanks so much for coming on again.
Yeah, cheers.
Always a pleasure.
Brilliant, mate.
Always a pleasure.
It's been great.
Brilliant, mate.
Love catching up with you guys, and you know I like to talk. So
yeah, man, it's great talking Star Wars in the middle of the day. Love it.
I just want to say as well, I'm a fully paid up member of The Rise of Skywalker. I think it's a brilliant film. So
join the club.
Good stuff.
There we go.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mark, thanks again for joining us. Really appreciate it. And Paolo, as always, pleasure.
Yeah.
Got to get a beer in the diary at some point. Yeah.
We're going to do a podcast in the pub, Mark. That's what we're going to do.
Oh, I like
We're taking it on the road. It's not quite Tokyo, but, you know, the Weatherspoons. Let's do one step at a time, baby steps.
It's a good place to start, though, isn't it? And probably to finish. So, yeah.
Exactly.
The price is right. Let's put it that way.
But yeah, definitely if you're in Tokyo, go and see the Elvis. They do a lot of Elvis impersonations in pubs.
Okay.
And they're balmy. Tokyo's balmy. You love it.
Brilliant. I should
Great
do that.
city.
I'll look for Elvis. I knew Elvis had to be somewhere.
Yeah, just loads of Japanese impersonators. It is random.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. And thanks to you for listening as well or watching on Twitter at UK Star Wars Pod, YouTube Co-Clearance Blue, and now TikTok as well, Co-Clearance Blue. Come and get involved. We're still looking for your favourite droids. We spoke about that a couple of weeks ago. Drop us your favourite. But for now, on behalf of Paul and Mark, we'll say thank you very much and may the Force be with you all.
Starting our approach, deactivate the security shield.
Security deflective shield will be deactivated when we have confirmation of your code transmission. Stand by.